Thank you very much for the invitation. I was asked to speak about structure and functioning of the European Union, and I would like to introduce you to the topic and present important issues on the subject for about 30 minutes. Then we will have time to discuss the issue, to exchange views, you have the opportunity to ask questions, and we will then move to a sort of group exercise which I will explain later. I hope you all have got the handout, and I will be proceeding in 3 steps. I will firstly talk about the institutional setup of the European Union, then about the state of the Union in terms of differentiated integration, and that is not a two-speed Europe. And my third part will be on democratic control of major decisions taken by the heads of state and government. Then we will move on to this sort of group exercise. Now, what can we say about the institutional setup of the European Union? There was an institutional triangle formed by the Commission, the Parliament, and the Council, which became a trapezium, or it's not very clear how to call it, but there was a 4th institution which became an institution with the Lisbon Treaty, the European Council, which was established obviously well before, but it became the institutional status in 2009. Now, how does all this work? It works in a sense that there is something called the community method, which is a method that is adapted to the pluralism of the EU, which is based on the balance of power established to integrate all the interests at stake and to promote unity in diversity. It's for fairness and equal treatment of the member states. This community method has often been opposed to an intergovernmental method, but the community method is something very special and very distinct to the European Union, because it allows that the Union is not dominated by the large member states, that also the small member states have their say, and that the Commission, as a guardian of the treaty, has its role. So there are 4 important elements of the community method. The first is a monopoly of legislative initiatives for the European Commission. The second is qualified majority voting in the Council of Ministers, which means that the Council of Ministers does not vote by unanimity, so no single member state can block decisions. Since the rise of the European Parliament, one has to add the implication of the European Parliament as a third characteristic. And this is very important and sometimes forgotten. There is the obligation to implement decisions at the national level, and there are also judicial enforcement mechanisms like the European Court of Justice, who can enforce decisions. Now I would like to move from the community method back to the Commission, because the European Commission is the key institution, and I'm working at a think tank which was established by a former Commission President, Jacques Delors, after he left the presidency. So the European Commission is the key institution in the institutional setup still, and we have at the top of the Commission President, and the Commission President, we will have a new Commission President in 2014 after the European Parliament elections, and there are, in general terms, 3 possibilities how the Commission President could be selected. elected, chosen. The first option is, let's say, à peu près the status quo. It's the preservation of the dual legitimacy of the President of the European Commission by maintaining the link with the European Council, who nominates the President, and avoids an exclusive link with the European Parliament, who then just approves the choice by absolute majority. This is how it is in the Treaty of Lisbon today. The treaty, I think it's Article 15, says something like the heads of the European Council chooses the President for the European Commission, taking into account the result of the European Parliament elections. Something that is very vague. So this is the first option. We could leave it like that for 2014. A second option would be a direct nomination by the European Parliament rather than by the European Council, and so establish a direct link between the results of the European Parliament elections and the Commission presidency. So this would be, let's say, more democratic. There would be something at stake for the European Parliament elections of May 2014. They have been fixed for the 25th of May. And the third option would be something rather different. It would be the direct election of the President of the European Commission by the people, and one could even merge this post with the one of President of the European Council. So this would mean that there would be a guy, let's call him Herman Barroso, so merging the posts of Herman Van Rompuy and José Manuel João Barroso. So this would be a rather, let's say, ambitious option, but one could do it without treaty change. This is important because treaty change is always difficult. You have to ratify in 27 member states, because there would just have to be the same person on the two for the two jobs. So the heads of state or government would just have to choose the same person. The same person. Only the direct election by the people would not be so easy to implement. But we could get a president of the European Union by a decision from the heads of state and government, and if the European Parliament approves. So just to have a look at the European Parliament elections, this is the turnout since 1979. It's not really a success story, but we must see that the turnout of the European Parliament elections is not so bad if we compare it to the elections to the US Congress. There's always 40% turnout. So in a comparison of federal systems, this is okay. But of course, if the European Parliament elections were a real contest for the office of Commission President, one could hope that turnout is higher. Now, just here on legislative politics, what's actually going on in the European Union is legislative politics between the European Parliament and the Council of Ministers. We know that all recent treaties have changed the influence of the European Parliament, and that there are more and more early agreements under the co-decision procedure between the EP and the Council. Now, early agreement means that there is only a first reading, that both institutions negotiate in secret and have a deal which is not transparent, and that there is no second and third reading, so it's a more speedy process, and about 90% of all legislation is now passed that way. Is it a good thing? I would say it is not, because it's always important to have public debate and transparency, but this is largely due to the fact that there are about 60% of governments in the Council of Ministers from the EPP, from the European People's Party, the Conservatives, and that the European People's Party and the Liberals, ALDE, have also a majority in the Parliament. So if they work together, and if the same political views have the same opinion on a piece of legislation, it can pass through easily. This is not the case for all policy areas. There are policy areas where the liberals here rather form a majority with the left, with the socialists and the greens. This is, for example, true on civil liberties, environment issues, and so on. So in this case, we have co-decision, deciding together, the council and the parliament, taking different views and thus not reaching agreement so easily. This graph is actually from Vote Watch Europe, which is an organization that analyzes all the roll call votes in the European Parliament, and does good research, and there are reports available which I can recommend very much. So just on the European Council again, the European Council became an institution. I've mentioned that. The European Council is not. It is an intergovernmental institution, but there is also the President of the Commission part of it. The European Council makes important contributions to the European construction, and it has, as the numerous meetings during the Euro crisis show, an agenda-setting function. It has the legitimacy and the strength to set the agenda, and in a certain way it also preserves and protects the community method, because it only the European Council, and so the heads of state and government, only give input. They don't legislate. They may not legislate. So that on the sort of general institutional setup, you may know many things. I might not have told you many new things. So that's why I want to move to something a little more original, in the sense that we take a global view, we leave the institutions, and we take the entire structure and the let's say how the European Union is organized, and it's organized what is not integration by everyone, but it is differentiated integration. But again, this differentiated integration is not a two-speed Europe. Maybe first, why have some people said that we have a two-speed Europe now? It's because there are 27 members in the European Union and 17 members in the Eurozone. So people, eminent researchers, have said that, well, there is this fast lane of countries in the Eurozone, the 17, and the other 10, they are driving at a lower speed. So that's the two-speed metaphor. But it's not as simple as that. I will show that later. So just two examples from the entire toolbox of differentiated integration. It's enhanced cooperation is the first one, and let's say doing an intergovernmental treaty is the second one I would like to present to you. The enhanced cooperation is something very simple. It's to summarize it in one phrase, it means actually that member states can go ahead, those who like, and the others don't stop them. So it allows to have a legislative act that applies only to a subgroup of member states, and that this legislative act passes through the Council by only those member states voting who are concerned and who would like to do it. I will show you examples in just a minute. And the other one is the Treaty on Stability, Coordination and Governance in the Economic and Monetary Union, which is better known as the Fiscal Compact. And it actually means, it was actually negotiated in a very short time, and it has 25 contracting parties. So it is a treaty, but it was not signed by everyone. That's why it's also a type of differentiated integration. And now if we look at the whole universe of differentiated integration, it's more differentiated, it's more diverse than 17 versus 27, because there are 23 countries who have signed the Euro Plus Pact. The Euro Plus Pact was negotiated in March 2011, and it strengthens, it's some kind of economic objectives to enhance the competitiveness of member states. It's not intrusive, it's between the states, it's peer review, it's that sort of thing. So it's 23 members who signed it, it's 25 who signed the TSCG, the Fiscal Compact. There are 24 countries who will be part of the single supervisory mechanism, which gives bank supervision to the ECB. And 11 countries only will introduce a financial transactions tax. Now, how does this all look like? This is a very complicated table, I apologize, but this is how differentiated integration looks today. We have the Eurozone here in yellow with 17 members, and around this we have all the other sorts of differentiated integration, where some member states are part and others are not. We have the single supervisory mechanism, which I mentioned. We have the Euro Plus Pact. We have the Fiscal Compact. And we always have some states who are part of it and others who are out. I was just, a few days ago, I was in London for a conference, and one actually notices how different the whole debate about Europe is in the United Kingdom. So they are there, and they are, well, there was the referendum promise by Cameron for 2017 if he gets re-elected. And one actually sees here they aren't part of many things. They are part of something which is interesting, which is the enhanced cooperation on the patent. The patent, it establishes a regime for patent protection in order to have a single European patent and not national ones. But there are two countries who are not part of this patent, who are outside. It's Italy and Spain, and this was for reasons of the language, because they don't accept that German, France, and English are the only languages in which a patent can be submitted. What else do we see? We see Schengen as an example where member states outside the Union take part, but also some member states inside the Union do not take part. We see the financial transactions tax, which is only 11 members of the Eurozone. So it's a picture that is complicated, but a picture which has its justification, and it's a picture which shows very well, I think, that there is no two-speed Europe. It is a multi-speed Europe. It is differentiated integration, and it is. What did I want to talk next about? I wanted to look into the future. So this is the status quo, how it is now, and if we now look from this status into the future, we could well think that there is more differentiation in the European Union in the medium term, where the question arises, what happens to the pre-ins? Pre-in is a term which was coined by Westerwelle, by a report which he initiated with several other foreign ministers, which means all the countries who are committed to join the euro, because every member state that does not have an opt-out is committed to join the euro, and so their role is important for the future, and if they want to participate in enhanced cooperation. And then there will be more integration in the Eurozone in the short and medium term with a growing number of member states. I don't want to go into the detail of these treaty articles here, just to show you there are possibilities with which more integration can take place in the Eurozone. There is Article 136, which is an article that allows the Eurozone to go ahead. The third paragraph was actually added recently to establish, to find a basis for the European Stability Mechanism, the ESM. And there is also the Article 10 of the Fiscal Compact, where the last phrase, the last few words are the most important, because for the Eurozone it's easy to integrate further, but it always has to go without undermining the internal market. And this is also the view of member states who are not in the euro, but who think that the single market is very important, like the UK. So I'm moving to my third part on the democratic control of the major decisions that are taken by the heads of state and government, and it is clear that I'm talking about the European Council. We have had 20, I don't know how many, summits during the crisis, and these summits change, but there is always an information gap. The head of state or government, the German Chancellor, the French President, the Greek Prime Minister, is always involved in the intergovernmental bargaining. But there is an absence of a hostile or potentially awkward opposition at the press conferences, because these press conferences, you have certainly seen them, they take place after the council, after the summit, in the middle of the night. They are badly prepared. Everybody is tired. Journalists don't ask questions, and people and the politicians actually even say things where they say different things. If you listen to different the Dutch Prime Minister in July last year, he gave the press conference, and his statement actually contradicted everyone else. So it was about numbers for rescue package for Ireland, I think. But, so the Dutch Prime Minister gave numbers, and it was July. The Dutch Parliament was actually already on holiday, but they all came back and convened the Prime Minister to explain himself after the summit, because he gave the wrong numbers. He had wrongly informed the public, and also indirectly his MEPs, and so there was this little scandal, but which illustrates that there is an information gap between the Prime Minister, the head of state or government, and the Parliament. But there is also a lack of political salience of the control. We have low and declining parliamentary attendance. We have themselves on EU issues. Just finally on that point, national parliaments are rather obsessed by themselves. This is a very strong word, but could have an increased role. they see their strengthening not really as opposed to the empowerment of the European Parliament, and this is a kind of soft prove it at the end, and if they can't change it, but their idea to, let's say, call for a greater role of themselves is something they do the European Union. Now, in the European Parliament, there is a package of 6 legislative texts to enhance budgetary surveillance and control of economic policies, which is called the six-pack, and we actually see in by all those MEPs who voted, who are here in green, all those, and it was passed by a centre-right majority in the European Parliament. ALDE and EPP again. In the 2014 campaign, the left could actually say, this is Europe run by the centre-right with all this austerity, and they could do a campaign on that if the people are actually aware of this. But the message of how democratic control takes place in the European Parliament too is actually not really getting through. This is what we have to say, because the powers of the European is very limited. Now I want to show you some research which was mentioned earlier, which is an unpublished report which we have written for the European democratic control in the 27 national parliaments by the democratic control of the European Council. So it's the table actually distinguishes between ex-ante control and ex-post control, either before the European Council or afterwards. And we have analyzed all the European Council summits between March 2011 and March 2012. There were 11 during that time period, including Euro summits. And there is, we distinguished between reduced involvement, less than 3 meetings in European Affairs committees, and in plenary, committee involvement, plenary involvement, and involvement in both. And you see here all the 27, the lower houses of all the 27 member states, and the impression you get here right away is that there is a lot going on, but it's very diverse. We have powerful national parliaments like Germany, which has involvement, a great involvement ex ante and some involvement ex post. We have a full parliamentarization in Denmark. We have France somewhere in the middle, Greece somewhere in the middle. And we have other parliaments like Hungary, Luxembourg, and Romania who are doing very, very little in terms of democratic control. Now the question is, should actually every national parliament become like Germany or like Denmark? Because you may remember that in October 2000, was it 12 or 11? It was 2011. It was 2011. The European Council was actually suspended. Angela Merkel got back to Berlin. The Bundestag voted on the bailout for Greece, and the European Council resumed afterwards. So this is just crazy. One can do that One can't even do that with one national parliament, but one certainly cannot do it with 27. We have identified 7 different models, which I will show to you here. I only talk about the expert model, which is what France is most converging with. And we see in the expert models it's expert scrutiny. It's not the involvement of the plenary, or it's rare involvement of the plenary, and it's specialized members in charge of control. For Greece, it's government accountability. We see involvement before the council limited, but involvement afterwards. One can also explain this by the fact that there were important decisions taken concerning Greece, so the parliament wanted to hold the government to account. And we have Germany, which is a policy maker, and where the parliament actually wants to influence the government. It wants to exercise influence before the summit, and so get its own preferences, the preferences of the majority, into policy. Now, just to finish on how interparliamentary control could be enhanced. This is Article 13 of the Fiscal Compact. The text is dancing a little bit around, but that doesn't matter. That actually, this treaty article actually talks about interparliamentary control, and it offers a possibility which I would like to use with you later for the group exercise. It offers a possibility to create a interparliamentary conference and to organize it. So it says that the European Parliament and the national parliaments of the contracting parties, which means 25 member states, all except the UK and the Czech Republic, will together determine the organization and promotion of a conference of representatives of the relevant committees of the European Parliament and representatives of the relevant committees of national parliaments in order to discuss budgetary policies and other issues covered by this treaty, by the Fiscal Compact. You see, there is a lot that can be made out of this article, because this article is very vague. It gives a few guidelines, and then one can actually build or create this kind of interparliamentary conference. And I think that this was my presentation that I wanted to give to you, and I think we can now discuss, have questions, and we will move to the 4th point on the handout, the group exercise, a little bit later. Thank you. Any questions?
Go back to the scrutiny model, to the chart.
This one?
Yes. That means that Germany in this case is putting only for ratification certain decisions or all decisions?
No, this actually concerns the European Council in general. So it concerns everything that is decided at the European Council.
And every meeting.
Every meeting. Okay. So let's take the example of. Well, there is an upcoming European Council of 15th of March. Mm-hmm. There are parliaments meeting before and parliaments meeting afterwards, in committee or in plenary. Mm-hmm. And now, on the basis of this analysis, we expect that the German parliament meets in committee and in plenary before the European Council, it is before every European Council that the Chancellor gives a statement. So it's just the day before that Merkel always gives a statement. So this would be the plenary. But there's also a committee session of the European Affairs Committee, and after the Council there is only a committee meeting. So the analysis here doesn't really concern ratification, because there are very few things to be ratified. Yeah, but ratification in a literal sense.
By involvement
yes.
in the decision-making process, or preparing the Chancellor for the process. So you seem to be indicating with this charge that the democratic deficit is partly due to the fact that national parliaments and national governments don't actually do enough to control. The mechanism is there should they want to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So the democratic deficit is not necessarily sitting only at European level, but at the level of laziness of each government and parliament.
Exactly.
Or willingness to be exposed to whatever needs to be negotiated in the council.
There are these two ways. There is one could strengthen the European Parliament to tackle the democratic deficit,
or be like Germany.
and each member state could strengthen the democratic control exercised by its national parliament. And it's actually the democratic control of the Prime Minister of the national government. And just for France here, for France there is a particular problem, because in France it's the President who goes to Brussels for the summit, but it's the President who cannot appear before the Parliament. Yes, it's not possible, and so it's the Prime Minister who goes before the Parliament by the European Affairs Minister. So control is particularly tricky for presidential or semi-presidential systems, France and Cyprus. Yes, please.
You talked about three options for the elections in 2014. I think it's the British academic Simon Hicks who wrote about a possible other scenario to sort of politicize the elections. And his point was that it would involve no treaty changes, and I understood correctly it's about the groups, the parliamentary groups, say the EPP on the right and the other ones on the left, should have a big conference or something ahead of the election, saying if we win the majority, we will want this person as a president of the commission, and that would put huge pressure on the national governments to abide by that.
This actually is a more detail. You've explained more in detail what I have. It would not be a direct election. There would not be any treaty change, as you said, and as Simon has argued for many years. And this way of rival candidates, the political group to have pan-European primaries by the transnational political parties to actually choose the candidate. So, but all these rival candidates, a commitment from the heads of states and government, this idea of which Simon Hicks has been the fiercest advocate, is possible, and it actually refers to what I've called the second option, where there are candidates, the Parliament votes, and the European Council rather follows what Parliament wants. But there would have to be political will. And if today we think that, well, to say it very frankly, there are two people who would like to get the job. One is Viviane Reding, who has repeatedly said it in public, and I see you're not very amused, everyone. And the other one is Martin Schulz, who has good chances to be the candidate of the socialists. So these are the two front runners at the moment. But there are other options. For example, Donald Tusk would like to get the job. You can tell me other names who you would like to see at the World Commission president. So.
Berlusconi.
One is actually talking about Mario Monti as president of the European Council, which would be a good job because he doesn't have to be elected for president of the European Council.
Is someone advocating for a third option, or is it just a hypothetical one?
Well, it's very difficult to implement. So it would really, it is the Christian Democrats, the CDU, at the party congress in 2011, November 2011, who have put this in their manifesto, in their program, in their manifesto. I don't really know why it's in there. It's this kind of idea to presidentialize the election, to have a direct election. The CDU actually does not say anything about merging this post with President of the European Council. It's just the idea that the CDU voted for direct election of the President of the European Commission, and it's an idea that is now around. I don't think it will happen in 2014. It's pretty certain it will not happen in 2014, because it's too difficult.
Why could not all members of the European Commission be elected by the European Parliament?
Well, why? I actually wanted to say that, but I forgot to say it. The Commission is a political organ, but also an administrative one. So there are politicians now sitting in the Commission from every country, but they are exercising tasks like competition policy, which are rather tasks of an agency and not really of a government. Now, if we get 27 directly elected MEPs or whoever in there, these 27 would reflect the majority of the European Parliament 1-to-1. So if we have an election as we propose it, we would have 27 commissioners either from the center left or from the center right. And the Commission would be highly politicized. The Commission would not be the guardian of the treaty any longer, and the Commission would lose some of its independence. So these are the arguments why it hasn't been done. Now, I think it would be good, I personally think it would be good to politicize the Commission more, to have the direct link with rather candidates, as Simon Hicks has proposed it, but actually elect the members of the Commission. This happens nowhere. It's always the head of government who is elected and who chooses his team. So it's not a good system now with the national governments choosing persons like Cathy Ashton, but it's I'm not sure that it's a solution to have the European Parliament voting. So these are some reasons why it isn't in place. Yes, that was it.
And among these four institutions, which institution has been more active in the resolution of the crisis? Maybe
Any proposal of which institution do you think?
maybe European Parliament?
No, not really, not really. Parliament is rather silent. Don't tell this to Elmar Brok when you meet him later this week. But, yes, it's Council, yeah, European Council.
And the Commission in the Troika.
Yeah, the Commission plays an important role in the Troika. And the IMF. So, yeah.
Okay, and
Sorry,
just
yeah.
why the council?
Why the council? Because there has been this trend that the European Council meets more often, discusses these issues, actually decides, and the European Parliament doesn't have the power, the budgetary power to decide on a bailout. The European Parliament does things. So there's the six-pack I've mentioned, there is the two-pack, there's the Stability and Growth Pact. The European Parliament has some powers, but during the crisis it has been executive decisions, the heads of state and government, so it's the Parliament who has rather lost some of its powers. Not really lost its powers, but it doesn't have powers in the domain in question today. But just to say that, and I'm a great fan of the European Parliament. So the European Parliament has had, as I have said, new powers with the Treaty of Lisbon. There have been votes like on the SWIFT agreement, on the ACTA agreement. So on international agreements have been votes where the European Parliament voted what has been decided by the Council of Ministers, and it could stop ACTA, which is it's the copyright and anti-contrefaçon. How does one say in German or English? So there was a huge public outcry. Counterfeit, exactly. So there was this outcry in 2012, and so the European Parliament exercises the new powers it has with Lisbon on international agreements. So it's there. There was another question at the back.
Can you please tell us a few words about the European referendum initiative, or I don't remember the exact name?
Citizens' Initiative.
Right, and how it all fits in the apparatus of the EU?
Well, the Citizens' Initiative actually says that 1 million signatures are needed in order to demand from the European Commission to make a proposal, to a legislative proposal. So this actually weakens a little bit the monopoly of the legislative initiative which I've attributed to the Commission. And there are several European citizens' initiatives collecting signatures at the moment. The first one has reached the level of 1 million signatures, which is on water. It's about the right to have free and public access to water, so that water is not controlled by private companies. And they have reached the level of 1 million signatures, but there are certain numbers of signatures that have to be reached in individual member states. It's actually a system that multiplies the number of MEPs by 750, and this is the level for each member state. So for Germany, for example, you need approximately 750,000 signatures. No,
75,000.
75,000, yes. 70. And this is, this initiative hasn't reached it in some countries. So now if we get the citizens into this setup, it doesn't really change a lot. The Citizens Initiative was launched in April 2012. They're now the first one which has its million of signatures. There are others, it's called Fraternité 2020, which wants some kind of Erasmus-like scheme in a broader sense. Let's see how it works. It's too early to say much about it. It's a good instrument, but we'll have to see how it works.
Is the Commission bounded by such a referendum?
Well, the Commission has the obligation to check all the initiatives at the moment when they are disposed, and it's actually. Well, there are limits, so it has to be an EU competence, it can't cover institutional issues and so on. So, the Commission has to propose something. What then happens, member states say no and the proposal is dead. So, I'm sorry to be a bit pessimistic on that note. Okay, any other questions, or shall we move on to more interactive part of what I've prepared for you?
Just one question. Which role plays Notre Dame in the bargaining process? What do you do concretely to influence the decisions?
That's a very good question. So we are a think tank. We are not a new institution at all. We were founded by the former Commission President Jacques Delors, and we try to influence all the institutions with our ideas, which are generally pro-European, which are also providing policy advice and solutions to the crisis and so on. But to give you a concrete example, in terms of economic and monetary union and everything that has been on the table, you may know that there was Herman Van Rompuy wrote a report, the Commission wrote a report. It's all towards a genuine economic and monetary union where the EMU should be moving. So this has been tabled in July, September, October, November, December 2012, and we actually published a report which is called towards a genuine economic and monetary union in June. So it was a group of experts with eminent economists working on the subject, and it was called the Tommaso Padoa Schioppa group. Tommaso Padoa Schioppa was a former central banker and president of Notre Dame. So he was with Jacques Delors at the origin of the Economic and Monetary Union. And so it's a 50-page report. You can download it from the website. It's public, so it's actually called Completing the Euro. It's available in French, English, and German. In Euro for N, Parachever l'Euro, and they had proposals in there that later re-emerged by surprise in what Herman van Rompuy was proposing. So we had some influence, and we noticed it, and we are glad in order to influence the debate. But it's now actually on the European Council to decide how to. Well, we have a team, we have a board, we have a director, president, and we have external contributors. So I'm a member of the team, of the workforce. In order to be the board members are eminent Europeans, former politicians, servants, other people. So it's diverse. We are pro-European think tank, so there's no doubt about that. But
after the beginning of the crisis, we have actually the total breakdown of the trust in the basic social institutions in all EU countries. In several countries, I think only 7 out of 10 people or citizens don't have confidence in their government. How does that affect the work of European government?
Well, I would say that you can always look at Eurobarometer surveys, and you will also find confidence for the institutions is around 50%, something like that. So for the European institutions, there was also a decline in confidence over the last 10, 15 years. But if there is actually also at the same time less confidence in national governments, as you say, there has always been the distinction between input legitimacy and output legitimacy. If the policies produced are generating economic growth and so on, we have output legitimacy, and if there's citizen involvement and so on, we have input legitimacy, to put it very simply. So the EU as a whole, at the national level, at the European level, would have to work to produce results in order to strengthen output legitimacy, and there are some issues for input legitimacy as well, some of which I have been talking about. Maybe we'll have a last round of questions, collecting, and then we'll move on to the group. Please.
Do you think that since the crisis had begun, the parliamentary control has been weakened? I mean, since the Euro Council has much power now because of the crisis, because it decided a lot. The parliamentary control has
Well, I would say that the parliamentary control is on the way of being strengthened. It's the German Bundestag has acquired these powers recently. It's a development of the last 2-3 years, nothing longer. Portugal is actually an example where the European Union Act has been changed in order to give more powers to the parliament. There are other parliaments who have given themselves additional power. For example, Ireland, as a public forum, there is the commitment of the Prime Minister to make a statement before the plenary. So there is something moving, that maybe the European Council is moving even faster, and national parliaments have difficulties to catch up. So maybe that's the conclusion on parliamentary control. There is a lot to be done on parliamentary control. and I think we can now move to the more interactive part, which is the fourth point on your handout, where I have explained to you, as you have mentioned, just all these lack of parliamentary control. So I actually want to have you to have some small groups, let's say 3 people working together, and you should think about a body, an interparliamentary body, an institution, conference, committee, whatsoever, that could exercise some political control in the Eurozone. And in order to get your task a little bit easier, you should keep in mind the Article 13 of the TSCG, which we have read together, and which is also printed on your handout in a box. And you should look at the 6 questions, which should help you to design that body, that institution, that committee, whatsoever. And we will then have actually from each of the group a little some information about how this body will look like. And this information comes from the 6 questions, which are the size of the body. How many members do you want in the body? Composition. Who is inside this body? Should it be MEPs, members of national parliaments, or both of them? I would say I prefer both of them, but you can do as you like. Then we must
influencing the results.
you must decide on the number of members per country. Should France have 17 and Greece have 17 as well, or rather 2 per member states, or according to the population, what there are possibilities. And then you have, as a consequence of these choices, the weight of the MEPs in relation to the members of national parliaments. Who has more power in this committee, the MEPs or the members of national parliaments? You must decide what you want to do with the member states that are outside the Eurozone. There are 10 of them, we've discussed the issues. So who is in that committee? The 17, the 22, the 23, 25, 27? Or do you just leave the UK out and do it with 26? The institutional status of the body, the specific purpose, what should they do? Government accountability, expert scrutiny, policy maker, public forum. What do you want them to do? How often should they meet? Something like that. And finally, some of the specific competencies that this body should have. And give me a good name for the body. Not Interparliamentary Conference on Budgetary and Economic Policies. This is too long. Okay.
One word. One word.
Maybe? An abbreviation. A good one.
No, that was something.
No.
And, well, I think you'll be able to establish groups of 3 on your own, and I don't have to do that. So, let's say 50. Fortini and Sebastian, who presents their ideas. Team 1.
All together.
Please, put your hands together for Fortini.
How many members? We decided that it should be 272, which means 8 from 8 MEPs and 8 MPs from each country, which means equal numbers from all the countries. Included countries. What is MEPs? countries?
How many countries?
How many countries should be inside 20?
Oh,
No, sorry, the Eurozone. We thought that we can include countries or other countries outside the Eurozone only when about specific issues, which means like long-term decisions, like for example the 2020 agenda, if we were to decide today, or decisions that extend from the from the Eurozone, like for example movement of goods and services. Then the institutional status, we had a big discussion. I mean, we are a bit confused. I mean, this is one of the trickiest things to decide what the status would be, and probably we need it a bit more time.
Okay, we leave that aside.
The purpose we mainly said it would be to control and also be able to make amendments to decisions and also impose sanctions and yeah. Somebody said from our group that also be able to block, but we weren't sure.
The procedure of policy makers in Eurogroup or maybe in the summits of prime ministers. With the proposition of
Okay, very good.
we have also a name.
Okay, what's the name?
Which of all?
Okay, say that her the most
Powerful.
What?
Okay.
Maybe just write the name on the board.
and the motto
Motto, we found a common way from home, Europe,
and we should decorate it.
and we should decorate it. So it's Deco Zone. So it's from democracy or democratic. Cooperation
and control.
and from the Eurozone, the rest. And yeah, for model we found a common way from home, Europe.
I say something about each of the proposals when we have all of them, so we'll have the second group right away.
So we name our institution Congress of the European Nations. So how many members? It's 88. There is no members of the European Parliament. And there is 4 national MPs, 4 national MPs for states which are not in the Eurozone. And role of our institution bicameral system. So this institution will represent the interests of the nations in the European Union, as the model, the American model. So we will begin just with the budget. So it will just control the decision of the European Parliament to vote on the proposition of the European Parliament. And at the end, it will replace the European Council. So in order to have MPs elected at the national level. So that is the main.
Yeah, very ambitious.
Yeah, that is that.
Okay.
Yeah.
The name again?
Congress of the European Nations.
Okay.
Yeah.
To start, we weren't that ambitious. We have only built a very small group with a name. It's an acronym, IMAG, or image, and it stands for Independent Monetary Administration of Gender Equality. So there are 70 members. No, 34 members. 34. And all the members are of the European Parliament. 34 and the other none. Yeah, because including countries, the other one can observe. Yes, 17 are the main, and the other 10 can observe or give some opinion. The institutional statutes would be an informal advisory committee, something like that. Because the pre-selection, of course, it's probably national, and they have the power to refuse some selections or to pass them. Okay. The five is the fifth one was which one here? Expert. Competences are to refuse and to pass proposals. For the phases
so you look for a committee that decides the composition of the ECB board and what the faces for me,
Faces on the banknote.
On the banknote.
Yeah, we want both women and men on the banknote.
Of course, because it's the topic of the gender equality is of each country, it's one man, one woman. Good.
And it's called image. So?
Image.
Tell us again.
Independent monetary administration of gender equality.
Okay, very good.
Well done.
Fourth group.
Our problem was that we had a huge discussion from the first question, so that we still haven't found a name for us, and haven't talked that much on the last three questions. We want 68 members for our council, and that are 34 of the national parliaments, which are 2 members each for each parliament, with the point that at least one member of the parliament has must also be a member of the budget committee of that national parliament, yes, so that's 217, and then we had a huge discussion if that's not maybe too much or too less, somehow we went on. Every non-Euro member have the right to be part of the meetings with 2 members for their parliaments, but not the right to vote and to bring in decisions or anything, as long as they do not have the euro. The institutional status in that way would be quite formal, and they would have the right to not to state laws, but at least to formulate and bring them into the parliament of the EU and the parliament of the 17 nations that they are representing. And then we haven't really found quite code words for the competences.
I think you're too modest. This is quite ambitious that you get a body to formulate laws and so on. So, well done.
So, we decided to form a body of 74 people, voting members actually. The MEPs will be 34, and the MPs will be 40. This will vary per country from 1 to 4 members of the parliament according to size of population. The pre countries will be represented in voluntary basis with 3 delegates, if they want, with observer status, with at least 1 MEP and at least 1 MP, according to their choice. The mandate in general, go to purpose actually. The purpose will be to generate a report of the state's compliance to the Eurozone obligations they have from the various treaties, and in general propose the proper reforms to strengthen the currency. So it will be, we think it should be better to be a steering committee under the mandate of the Council of the Head of the Eurozone, of the Head of the State of the Eurozone, and the European Central Bank. After some resolution there will be issued on that part, and the official name will be Eurozone Financial Auditing Council or Committee. We are not very final on that, with abbreviation EuroFAC. Okay.
Well then, I'm struggling here with the PowerPoint. Let's do 16.
Okay, so how is the kind of political executive of the Eurozone?
Political?
Executive.
Okay.
That would be the purpose, more or less. And you want to talk about the size composition?
Yeah. So we would say that there are 36 members, 17 from the MPs.
No, two from the European Parliament.
34. 34 from the, yeah. So 34 from the national parliament.
So 17 times 2.
Yeah.
And there would be, from the budget committees as well. And the idea would be that you would have like the whoever heads the committee, and so like the major party, and the other one from the top ranking from committee member from the opposition.
Okay, very good.
The pre-ins would have like an
observer.
Yeah. Like
voting.
no voting rights, but they could participate in the discussions and contribute nonetheless. And the competences would be the purpose is more to control the ECB and to provide a sort of direction for the Eurozone, political direction I suppose. And specific competences for the ECB would be to issue opinions about the ECB, which would not be binding because that would undermine the credibility of the bank, but at least it would put some political pressure on the ECB, and to hold hearings of experts and of the ECB members as well, and the bank, the governance, the board of governors, and maybe to confirm the authority of those governors. And what else? And then, and also the committee or the executive would be tasked with ensuring compliance with the treaty, so the fiscal compact and all that, and to produce a sort of roadmap to a Eurozone budget that they would have to, and some fiscal federalism within the Eurozone. That's it.
Very good.
But we did have a big debate about whether the national basis was the right way to go for this. Yeah.
Okay, well, this is not very nice, but I did my best to establish a table on the basis of your proposals. What can we see? We see that, just to conclude on this group exercise, we see that in general you have decided for rather small bodies. These are, one could say, these are all committees here, except one assembly. There are pros and cons for the choice between committee and assembly. Assembly would be less for expert scrutiny, but more for public debate. So one could, for example, say that in front of an assembly, there would be a declaration from President of the European Council, President of the Eurogroup, something like that. Then there would be a debate and that sort of thing. Practically everyone wanted to have MEPs represented except Team 2, which are hardcore intergovernmentalists.
The Congress of the European nations.
So it's a very Giscardian idea. Giscardistan would love this idea. Then we have Team 3, very federalist and supranational, with leaving the nation state at the side and getting the ECB and European Parliament tutelle. So Sylvie Goulard, who fought against Yves Mersch as a board member of the ECB for gender equality reasons, she would be extremely delighted about that proposal. And we have Team 4, I forgot to note, you seem to have MPs there.
Yes,
yeah, 34 MPs as well. So it's a very... just like Team 1, Team 4 has 50-50 between MPs and MEPs, which is, I think, a good solution, because after all these budgetary, economic Eurozone issues are somehow divided between the supranational level and the intergovernmental level. Then we have Team 5 with a interesting idea that member states wouldn't be equal in terms of their representation as of MPs. So there would be one MP for the smaller states and up to 4 for the larger member states, which it's actually, this is really a no-go area. Nobody talks about this at the moment because it's pretty obvious that member states aren't equal, so one keeps the impression that they are equal. So if you look at the ESM, if one looks at the European Stability Mechanism, voting rights are by paid-in capital. So voting rights of Germany are 29, voting rights of France are 22%, and they're having the majority on their own. But in the Board of Governors of the European Stability Mechanism, each member state has 1 seat. But they aren't equal. They're just guarding the impression that the member states would be equal. So it's it's very, you're telling us with the proposal to have 1 to 4 MPs, something that is true, but something that nobody wants to hear. And for this last team, you're having very few MEPs, which is this is a little bit like for the negotiations of the fiscal compact. For the fiscal compact, it was actually the governments negotiating, 25 of them, and 3 MEP observers. One was Gualtieri from the Socialists, the other one was Elmar Brok from EPP, and the third one was Guy Verhofstadt from the Liberals. So they were quite on their own and not too happy to be dominated by the national level. So in terms of the included countries, there is a great debate going on. We have different positions. We have these very diverse general picture, and you have actually decided always that they would be observers, which I think is very good, and which is the only solution, because everyone except Denmark and the UK has the legal obligation to join the euro. So there can't be decisions taken without these countries if they have to weigh to them later. And finally, in terms of the institutional status, this is very tricky. The European Parliament in particular is fighting against giving any institutional status to this. And I found it very interesting that you are all talking about the budget committees, not the European Affairs committees, because the European Affairs committees, they are meeting already informally in something that's called COSAC, Conference of Committees Specialized in Constitutional and European Affairs. So budgetary committees really need to meet, and it's there is the gap at the moment. And just to conclude in telling you what's already in place and what's already under consideration. Presidents of 6 national parliaments have met in Luxembourg, and these were the 6 national parliaments of the founding member states, meaning Benelux, Germany, France, and Italy. They met and they signed a declaration together with a vice president of the European Parliament. This declaration is called working paper, but this actually reflects what is the current state of mind, and it's actually a copy of an assembly, or rather it's called a conference, that already exists in CFSP matters. It's the Inter-Parliamentary Conference for CFSP and CSDP, which was established following the Western European Union Assembly, which was dissolved because the WEU doesn't exist any longer. They have just copied the one for CFSP into economic and budgetary policies, which is a bit awkward. You were much more creative because they take 6 MEPs per member state, 6 MPs per member state, sorry, and only 16 MEPs in total. So this makes, if you include only the Eurozone, this makes 178. So it's rather an assembly. And they take 6 MPs because they want also the small parties represented in that composition, small parties from the national parliament. But they are actually only having 10% of MEPs. The European Parliament is very weakly represented in that proposal. So you will see during the coming months that the implementation of Article 13 TSCG of the Fiscal Compact will be a very lively debate, and I'm very grateful for your ideas and for what you have reflected during, well, I didn't give you much time, and I'm very sorry for that, but maybe at the end of the day we will have a proposal which will be different from the one that they have discussed there, and which will be more like one of those that you have proposed. Thank you.